Welcome back to the NWR Virtual Healthcare Conference. Next up, we have IMRA and CEO Adam Clark. IMRA is a company providing real-life outcomes for surgeons and patients by disrupting, innovating, and advancing robotic surgery training and procedures globally, as well as training based on the latest simulation and virtual reality technologies. The company is creating the world's most advanced synthetic human organ models for surgical training. Adam will outline more on that in a moment. Just a reminder, if you want to ask a question, feel free to type it in using the Q&A option within Zoom, and we'll get to those at the end. But for now, I'll hand it over to Adam.
Hey, thank you, Matt, and thank you, NWR, for the opportunity to talk a little bit more about IMRA Surgical. We were on this platform and conference last year, and so we'll talk a little bit today about who we are, what we do, and give a few business updates. And of course, anybody who has any questions beyond what I cover in the deck, please feel free to contact me, and we can set up time, do non-disclosure agreements, and potentially give you an investor presentation and move forward from there. So without further ado, I'd like to just talk a little bit about IMRA Surgical. I am the CEO. My name is Adam Clark. I've been in the medical device industry for 26 years, starting my career with Johnson & Johnson, then nearly 13 years with Medtronic, 8.5 years as a vice president of sales with Intuitive Surgical, the largest robot manufacturer in the world, and the last 2 years as the CEO of a startup company here in North Melbourne called IMRA Surgical. IMRA started as the Australian Medical Robotics Academy. It started back in 2017 as an idea and a nonprofit by Professor Tony Costello. And Professor Costello is a very important figure, not only in our company's history, but in the history of robotic surgery adoption. He is one of the early pioneers in urology and robotic surgery and brought the first robot to Australia in 2003. And he had a vision. He believed that surgeons, and he still does, that surgeons should teach other surgeons how to become great and safe and efficacious robotic surgeons. And so he worked with the Victorian government and some philanthropists to get this business off the ground and started. We built a beautiful facility here in North Melbourne in the Parkville Biomedical Precinct, right near the hospital, and have a world-class training facility where we've developed curriculum and content for the Royal College of Australasia, and also the Royal College of Surgeons of Ireland. And we're working with other colleges of surgeons around the world. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Our vision really here is to take education from the way that it's historically been shared and applied, and to change that pedagogy from seeing one, doing one, and teaching one, and practicing in patients, but rather, how do we use modern techniques and approaches to scale surgical education so that it can be done anywhere in the world? It can be done in a more progression-based pathway model where people can develop their skills and that they can practice on synthetic models rather than needlessly killing animals and cadavers. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute as we go. There are a lot of trends happening at the same time in the medical industry and in the surgical training industry. And like I talk about all the time, that the number of surgeons in the world, the demand for surgeons, is only increasing. Surgeons now are working later in their career. There's a surgical shortage around the world, and people are racing to try to find solutions to that. And that is going to be the case for the foreseeable future. On top of that, there are these other trends happening. The first one is one in the middle here on this slide, and that is there are 35 to 40 robotic surgery companies coming on the market. So we're seeing a market that's right now about $8 billion US annually, that's expected to be a $30 billion market in the next 10 years. The conversion of open surgery to laparoscopy in the 1990s is now replaying itself from open and laparoscopy to robotics and digitally enhanced surgery. And so all of these companies from around the world are racing to develop surgical robots. Johnson & Johnson, Medtronic, Intuitive Surgical, as I mentioned before, the world leader currently. Tons and tons of startup companies, massive, large organizations like Stryker and other companies are all in this industry and trying to introduce or have already introduced surgical robots. At the same time, and I don't think it's a stretch for anyone to imagine, you can see all of these challenges with how many animals are killed each year for surgeons to practice. And the way that surgery is practiced, as I mentioned before, which Professor Costello outlined, is people are practicing in patients, or they're practicing on cadavers, or they're practicing on animals. Now, ethically, we're trying to move away from live animals, and most of the medical device industry is rapidly looking for a solution. And I don't think it's a stretch for anyone's imagination on this call to think that we want to get away from using and euthanizing animals to just go in and practice using a surgical stapler or an energy device. So we know that's happening also at the same time. The other challenge you have with cadavers is that there are fewer and fewer people donating their bodies to science. And so after COVID, what we've seen is the price of cadavers go from $5,000 now to $7,500 US, $10,000, some cases $15,000. In markets like China, you can't even get a cadaver. It's almost impossible because people don't donate their bodies to science there. So they're shipping these fresh frozen cadavers around the world. So these trends of animals going away, people not wanting to do this, they want something that's more ethical. The cadaver shortage and the cadaver pricing skyrocketing, and then all of these surgical companies launching into the market at the same time combines with one other factor that's here on the bottom right, and that is the surgeons of today learn differently than the way that I learned. I'm 54, but surgeons who are in their 20s today or early 30s, they did a lot of their undergraduate education online. They took courses and did things through virtual reality and in ways that we've never thought about in the past. But that's the way surgery is moving. So the traditional model, they call it the Halsted model, just founded at Johns Hopkins back 100 years ago. That model is still deployed, but it is rapidly evolving and changing. And so many of these companies like IMRA Surgical are trying to provide solutions to help advance the industry and move forward with the way that they're doing this. As I mentioned, you've got this sort of paradox right now. You've got this ability to even get cadavers or live animals is on the rapid decline. And at the same time, all of these robot companies trying to convert open surgery or maximally invasive surgery to minimally invasive surgery through the use of surgical robots. And these two sort of tailwinds, if you will, are what we're trying to capture at IMRA Surgical and move forward with. We've developed basically a two-pronged approach. We have e-curriculum, e-courses in our curriculum, in-person courses that we run. And we've also developed in partnership with places like CSIRO and University of Melbourne and Monash and others locally here in Victoria, we've developed some of the most lifelike synthetic organs ever developed. And I'll walk you through a little bit of what that looks like here on the call today and give you a little bit of an update. So our curriculum, which has been validated by the Royal Australasian College of Surgeons, is multifaceted. We have e-courses, so we have procedure-based courses for surgeons to sign up for and attend, which we just recently launched. We've also got the RACS accredited Foundations of Robotic Surgery online course that's being adopted and standardized in the Irish College as well here in Australia. We're trying to expand that around the world, and we believe we're getting really good uptick and interest from our partners. We also use simulation because, like the aviation industry, we believe that it's important to practice these skills and tasks in simulation rather than in real patients. And so simulation helping surgeons learn this very exciting technology, but in learning it the right way, very safely. Then the surgeons advance and they move to using our synthetic models. And then, of course, they would go to live surgery, but under things like guided proctoring, remote proctoring using advanced telesurgery, telementoring devices and technologies. This is where this is heading. So one of the challenges, or one of the many challenges that's experienced with the current methods, as I mentioned, is there are models out there, but they're anatomically inaccurate. They don't really look like a real tissue. Many of them are very expensive. Many of them are still made of animal material, and so you can't export them in and out of different markets around the world. For example, if you tried to import porcine animal parts into the Middle East, you'd really struggle to get access to that. And so in other parts of the world, it's it's frowned upon to do that. So there's challenges ethically in different countries around the world. And then, of course, surgeons learn differently, and they're very time constrained. They're very time poor. Trying to provide solutions to meet them with this. And part of this solution is our product portfolio that we have, which I'm not going to cover all of the items we have today. I did that last year. I will just give you a few overview for those of you joining us for the first time today to learn a little bit about what we do. So we've basically built a razor and blades model for the products business. And we're working on things like sales aids, and we're partnering with major companies on producing. Right now, we recently got a very large order to produce what could be thousands of sales aids for a sales force for a major medical device company. We're producing these organs for hospitals. We're producing these organ models for training for medical device companies to use in their human factors and research and development to get products approved through the Food and Drug Administration. So all of these different applications and opportunities, so target markets potentially for the surgical products business, we design these products, and right now we currently manufacture them here in Australia. We manufacture some of our products in Sydney, and we manufacture many of them also here in Melbourne, with plans to expand on a bit of a lift and shift strategy globally, wherever the larger markets are around the world for us. As I mentioned, these models historically, they either look real but don't perform for surgeons, meaning they look like real tissue, but you can't really operate on them, which isn't helpful if you're a practicing surgeon. Or you can find something that you can operate on, but it doesn't look anything like real tissue. So, for example, some of these animal models where they're using pig parts or goats or whatever, it's just not an optimal model. So what we wanted to design and create is an anatomical model that serves as a vessel for practicing putting in ports. In minimally invasive surgery, surgeons don't make major incisions to operate and remove organs. The whole reason why the world has moved to minimally invasive surgery is patients get out of the hospital faster with fewer surgical site infections and comorbidities. So to practice that, you have to practice putting ports in the human body. Now you can practice on a cadaver, as I mentioned before, the price has gone way up, or you can practice on a Pindari, which is our brand for our products division, torso that is healable. So you could put ports in the torso and then pull the ports out at the end, and you could heal them at the end of the day. So every surgical learner in a training lab can have a very brand new experience putting in ports, and it's much more realistic for real life. So I'm going to play a video to give you a little bit of a flavor of what I'm talking about. This, let me get it buffered here. This is Hydra, our female torso. And so when I talk about insufflation, this is the world's first insufflatable human torso for surgical training. It's made of a unique trademarked and patented material called synthetic. So it allows the surgeon, again, to very simulate what would really happen in a real procedure. And so you can see them putting in the ports, which they would normally operate through. And then the surgical assistant can put in the manipulator. For this case, it's a female a female torso model. We have a male as well. This one, you could put a uterine manipulator inside, and so it allows the surgeon to basically practice the surgery the way you'd really do it. And if I put a sheet over the top of this patient and over the bottom, and you walked into an operating theater, you would think there was a patient on the table. And that's the flexibility that surgeons are asking for, the medical device company is searching for. And we're just now and we're finished our validation of this product, and we're now getting ready to go into full commercial launch mode. So you can see here the example of the ports going in, and this is an example of the female reproductive system. That's a hysterectomy model, which is also synthetic. That is a single-use device. So this torso is designed like a razor to be used over and over and over again over the course of several years. And then to heal it, you just heat it with a heat gun. But you'll see in a moment here how this works. So they're putting in a uterine manipulator, which is what's done in a common hysterectomy procedure. A hysterectomy, for those of you not familiar, is the removal of the uterus. It's one of the most common surgeries done in the world. So now you can see in the bottom right corner of your screen, you can see as they manipulate the uterus from the outside, which is what the nurse or the surgical assist would do. You can see the uterus moving on the inside. And that's what happens in a real procedure if that were real anatomy. We've now made some enhancements since this video came out. We've made the inside of it more of a body color, so red, like simulating blood. And we've made some enhancements. This video is a bit dated, but it gives you the concept of what we're creating. So it's that razor, which is the torsos, male and female and pediatric. And then also the models that I showed you, the hysterectomies and so forth. So just an example again of this is the fidelity and the realism that we're highlighting, is that is they're mimicking, doing all of the parts of a procedure. So incising the peritoneum, operating down one side. So a surgeon can essentially practice the real procedure, but in synthetic models anywhere in the world. They can practice in their operating theater. All these materials are bioinert. And so you can see the energy, the surgical energy there, creating a charring sensation, which is unlike any other model on the market. And we're getting a lot of interest and commitment from many customers that we're working with. As we started this business and this venture, it required several key milestones. And so we've worked with Victoria government, the University of Melbourne. I'll cover a highlight on a recent update there in a moment. We've established brand names and trademarks, and we built some scaled manufacturing capability. We're partnered with the world's largest medical device companies like Medtronic and Johnson & Johnson. We're also partnered and working with the Royal Australasian College of Surgeons and the Royal College of Surgeons of Ireland, and as I mentioned, other colleges around the way. We've filed patents. We have numerous trade secret processes. We've got numerous trademarks that are approved and working through others as we speak. We've got many clinical publications, 7 clinical publications already completed, and we have 25 more that are in process that we're working through right now to validate our models clinically, to show that instead of using animals or cadavers or practicing in patients, that we're clinically validating and publishing around our pedagogy and our models, so that it gives the academic world the comfort knowing this isn't just a product, it comes with something that is more, which is a validated process. No other company is doing that, to my knowledge, working with both the research side of this, the academic side of this, partnering with industry, partnering with different institutions around the world. And I'll give you a brief update of what this looks like. So we, as I mentioned, have these courses that are credentialed through the Royal Colleges. So we have been pulled into a couple of different opportunities that we were calling internally our franchise model, but it's taking the courses we do here in Melbourne and applying them to different locations around the world. So in January, we did our first international pilot at the famous Guy's and St. Thomas's Hospital in London. For those of you who are familiar with London, this is the sort of premier training institution in the UK, and it's a part of the NHS Trust. And at this event, we had every course sold out over the course of the 5 days we were there. 3 days worth of courses and content, and now working and collaborating to make this a permanent fixture at Guy's and St. Thomas's. Their next course is set for July. So we're moving quite rapidly there in the UK. We believe that other NHS programs will be signing up to reproduce this, because we're basically giving them a turnkey formula here and how to run these courses. At the same time, just last week, we ran 5 days of courses at Liverpool Hospital, the largest teaching hospital in Australia, up in Southwest Sydney, partnered with the Ingham Institute for Applied Medical Research, who sponsored us. We had 5 days of courses, full courses, 4 of the 5 days, and 1 course hit the minimum. So real strong success there, and their interest to make this a more permanent fixture in their facility. This is in combination and partnership with the University of New South Wales, and also, like I said, Liverpool Hospital. And then with the Royal College of Surgeons of Ireland, we're working with them to expand into Bahrain in the Middle East. So we've got courses that we're setting up and locking in dates now. So that'll be 3 expansions outside of Melbourne in the period of just a matter of a few months. And the first 2 pilots, as I mentioned, are complete and have had tremendous success. So we're very excited about this opportunity, and looking at other markets. For example, the USA, we have strong interest in 2 locations in Germany and Singapore. We're also taking our products business. We've evolved our products and our manufacturing capability to the place where we're now ready to go from prototypes and small contracts to scaling this out to the masses. And so our Shopify, our online program, begins next week. So we'll be introducing an e-commerce site for medical hospitals, training institutes, sales representatives from medical device companies who need sample products. These products will all be listed on our Shopify site. And we're targeting the United States as the focus market as we get started there. And as I mentioned, on the education side, we've got the franchise models, online education, and then the other big exciting news that we're very proud of is that our partnership with the University of Melbourne Medical School, we recently finished the first cohort of a program called Immersion in Robotic Surgery. And so to our knowledge, for the first time in history, medical students, not consultant doctors, but medical students were exposed to robotic surgery as a part of their actual curriculum. So we had 17 surgeons attend the first cohort, paid for, reimbursed through the medical school to us. And the next cohort is already full, and it doesn't begin for several months. So we believe this is also something that can be scaled globally. And we're working with other medical schools here in Australia to continue to pilot this and get feedback and scale this. We want to do this in Dublin, for example, and other parts of the world that we're working in. These are some of the companies I just wanted to highlight. These are recurrent customers and or strategic partners that we've worked with. I won't go into detail for sake of time, but I'm happy to answer any questions for what I'm able to disclose. But these companies are either buying product, they're working with us on research, or they're credentialing our courses, and we're doing teaching and work in a variety of ways. There are many more, but this is just a snapshot of who we're working with right now. And if you know much about the medical device industry and the surgical training industry, you know these are some of the biggest names in this field. Lastly, and then I'll open it up for questions, this is our FY24 strategy that we've been focusing on all year, building a great team of folks. It always starts with people, and we've been able to add some fantastic employees who are adding a ton of value, helping us do deep research upstream and making high fidelity synthetic material that will help us replace animals' cadavers. We've hired a director of education, and we have a director of clinical research who's also a consultant colorectal surgeon at the Peter Mac Hospital here in Melbourne. We have experts from a variety of roles helping us drive market growth and penetration. partnerships through these medical device companies and clinical teaching institution. We're really focusing on our intellectual property portfolio, as I mentioned, and continuing to expand through innovation, people, and partnerships. So with that, open it up for any questions you might have.
Thanks very much, Adam, for the presentation. Once again, if anyone in the audience has a question, please feel free to type it in using the Q&A function within Zoom, and we'll get to it shortly. Adam, at the start of the presentation, talked a little bit about background on the company, but it'd be good to get a little bit of background about yourself and your experience in this sector as well.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, I'm very passionate about the field that we're in, education of surgeons. Having been in the medical device industry and been in the operating room, I can tell you there's a vast difference in a need for improving the safety and efficacy of surgery. There are varying different data points depending on the country and the market you look at, but readmissions and complications for different types of surgical procedures can range anywhere from 15 to 30%. And my background, having started in the US military, was cross-trained as a medic, so I had a passion for wanting to help patients and help people. But as I mentioned, I started my career in pharmaceutical sales with Johnson & Johnson, progressed to the medical device industry, working with Medtronic. My last sort of stop with Medtronic was in Australia. And then I went back to the United States for 8.5 years and helped build Intuitive Surgical sales and marketing efforts in the Western United States for 8.5 years, and placed thousands of robots over that time and hundreds of thousands of procedures, and built a pretty big business. I fell in love with an Australian, and I moved to Australia just 2 years ago. And I had the good fortune of meeting Professor Tony Costello, who I'd known about for years. And through good fortune and collaboration, we were able to figure out a way to build a business together, and excited to be on this journey.
Very good. One question that's come through is, what plans are there around marketing those Pindari products to generate sales through that online function?
Yeah, it's a great question. For those of you who follow our company, or maybe some shareholders on the call, we've not wanted to get the cart too far in front of the horse. We wanted to make sure that the products were right, and that we had our supply chain, packaging, product quality assurance down, because you don't get a lot of chances to do this over and over again. To answer the question with regard to marketing, historically, we've just done a few LinkedIn posts. We haven't spent any money on marketing our products. So now with the Shopify site, we're going to be doing search engine optimization. We're going to be doing targeted marketing and pull through. And the strategy there is that by having more, so for example, sales reps out there asking for our products, they'll be asking also their company to buy our products. And so it's a bottoms up, top down way to market the products to hospital training centers, training labs, nurses who teach surgery, with doctors on skills, surgeons who teach other surgeon skills, things like that. So we have a whole marketing campaign that we're putting together. We will be very targeted. I don't want to do a shotgun approach and just blast out spray and pray marketing strategies. We're trying to be very deliberate. We'll measure the return, so the ROAS, and we'll look back at our ad spend and evaluate other channels to go forward.
And all going well with that, Adam, how's the company positioned in terms of potentially scaling up production of the products?
Doing well. We're collaborating with the Victoria government right now. I'm not at liberty to go into too much detail, but we are looking for a much larger site. And as we refine, think about IMRA and our ability to scale manufacturing. How we're thinking about it is similar to your iPhone. The iPhone is designed in Cupertino, but manufactured somewhere else. We want to perfect everything here, not just the design, but also the way to manufacture. And it's very likely, and our investors and our board are keen to make sure that we can lift and shift to markets closest to the customer, because these are synthetic, but they're also very human-like, and so they don't last forever. So you want to have really efficient supply chains put in place and logistics as well.
And another question that's come through is, we're hearing a lot from NVIDIA about AI and video robotics. Would this be a product lever or a threat to IMRA?
No, I think that AI and VR, so artificial intelligence and virtual reality are going to be a major part of this. In surgical education and training, I'm embracing it, and we're thinking about different ways to incorporate what we're calling augmented reality in surgery. The reality is, while airline pilots might practice and do everything in a full simulator, surgeons want to touch things. They want to operate, they want to practice with their hands and feeling things. And so the VR simulation, for example, won't suffice. And everyone's kind of talked about that. That's why you see all these companies trying to come out with, and we're working and talking to several of them about using real fidelity haptic models, if you will. I think the artificial intelligence overlays just make surgery safer, but it won't replace the need to train surgeons and to help them learn these new technologies. But I know Johnson & Johnson just signed a major deal with NVIDIA earlier in this week. There are a few other companies out there who are currently working with them on artificial intelligence technology. I think it's a wonderful advancement that will make surgery safer for everyone. But those surgeons are still going to need the requisite skills and learn how to do these procedures. So there's a place for all of these technologies.
And just one final one, Adam, from a sort of financial perspective, can you just sort of talk us through the capital structure of the business and shareholders, etc.?
We converted the company to a private IMRA Surgical Pty Limited, private company last year as a part of funding we received from our major investors, and the intention was to keep the company private. And so we're not going to disclose a lot here today, only to shareholders. We'll be doing a shareholder update for those of you who are shareholders. We'll be sending something out in the very near future. We're on the cusp of signing a pretty big deal, so we're waiting to get that deal closed, and then we'll be sending out an update to the shareholders. But we're a privately held company. We have a few major significant shareholders and about 40 total shareholders. Others are in a trust and very good board of leaders. Our board chairman, Scott Tanner, former CEO of Bank of Melbourne, current CEO of Kay & Burton, and a variety of other institutions here locally. Phil Drever of Drever Capital on our board, and also of Trayfor. Gareth Thomas, who's a former private wealth advisor and very active board member, one of my mentors, and we've worked with others. We had David Curtin, who's on our board. David Curtin is a King's Counsel, and it helps us tremendously around legal issues and anything we need to think about with regard to the law. And then our executive director and founder is Professor Tony Costello, as I mentioned, the founder of robotic surgery in Australia and the founder of IMRA.
Very good, Adam. Well, that's all the questions we have. So thanks very much for the presentation today, and to everyone for joining in who's listening.
Thank you all. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Adam.